What's up, guys? This is Chaz and Charlie, and today I want to discuss smoking weed as a teenager. So I started my relationship with weed when I was a teenager, when I was 16 years old. In fact, it was my 16th birthday that I smoked my first blunt. And as teens, as children, society, says that we can have fun in our teen years. Usually in movies and TV, it's portrayed that children in high school, that's your time, your starting time to hang out, to party, to experiment with drugs, experiment with cigarettes, experiment with drinking. And although it may seem like fun and games, these are pretty pivotal moments in our lives, and actually a big part of when we actually pick up our habits and addictions that sometimes follow us into our adult lives. Now, specifically with weed, they did advise that, well, I've heard from various studies that a big part of weed users that do become addicted start smoking when they are teenagers. And a big part of that is because our brains are still developing. We think that because we are pretty much, we think we're through growing when we're 16, or we're pretty much a developed human being, a developed adult. But actually our brains are still functioning, and still developing, and we're still in the process of becoming a different person, or not a different person, but maybe becoming an adult version of ourselves. The same brain that we have at 16 is not the same brain we have at 25. So when we're 15, 16, our brains are still developing, and when we mess with our neurons, with our chemicals, and introduce weed and cigarettes, it actually gives us a higher chance of becoming addicted or keeping this habit throughout our adult years. And it starts out pretty harmless. I mean, nobody smokes their first blunt is addicted. Maybe some are, but it was a gradual increase. I started off smoking on weekends, then it was possibly every other weekend, then it became every other few days, and by the time I was 18, it was an everyday thing. And the first time you get high, it's nothing like when you start smoking on a regular basis. I remember the first time I got high, like real high, we smoked out in a car, which is so juvenile, and we actually pulled into a abandoned home and smoked in the driveway. And then we got so high and then some police came and actually tried to. They didn't arrest us, but they put their spotlight on, and I could barely pull out of the actual driveway. But we thought it was quite funny, and it was hilarious, and this memory, I couldn't imagine doing anything like that now. Obviously, I was a kid and stupid. But the first experience of getting real high is quite different than what it comes to when you smoke on a regular basis. And I often wonder, are we still chasing that same high? Because with addiction, they'll say that the whole point of continuing addiction is trying to get that first high that you got when you first smoked, or when you first got that euphoric feeling. I can't say I was searching for that first high, because I couldn't actually do anything when I got that high. and I was pretty much immobile and couldn't dare actually like go out in public or to work or something like that. But I can't say I was searching when I was 25 or 26, still wanting that same high I got when I was 16. I was cool with the how I was getting at that point. But this channel, again, I'm not against weed. I think people see these videos and they think that I'm just against any consumption of weed, and weed is bad, and don't smoke, don't ever smoke, it's the demon's plant. I don't feel that way. I think weed is a good alternative compared to other medicines. But I do think when we use it ignorantly and not use it correctly in a right application, we run the risk of falling into addiction and use it recreationally, which is just not good for us. Although they'll say that it's better than drinking or being an alcoholic. Yeah, true. But if you smoke for 15, 20 years, I mean, there are some side effects. They might not be as severe as you smoking weed, but there are some side effects to that. So when we take on this habit in our young age, when we're 16, when our minds are still developing, we're just dealing with something that we don't have the correct knowledge about. And it becomes harder to actually quit when we get into our 20s or our 30s and our 40s. And this thing has pretty much been ingrained in our mind. And I think weed did affect me in high school as far as making me less motivated in certain activities, specifically track. I ran track from 6th grade up into 12th grade. I started smoking weed in 12th grade. And although I'm not going to fully say I consciously quit track for weed, or like I found weed and the hell with track, but I kind of did. Once I started smoking, I started hanging out. I think the whole hanging out thing played a part too, but when I started hanging out, weed was definitely involved. And let's be honest, you can't be your best in something like track or something like running, an endurance sport, and smoke weed. That's just, you just can't be your best while you're smoking weed. So that definitely affected my track career. And by the end of it, I pretty much quit track. I always thought I would go to college on a track scholarship because I did live and breathe track for about 3 to 4 years of my preteen up into my teens. And once I just started hanging out and started smoking weed and drinking, I pretty much put it on the back burner. And I wasn't the best. I started losing and said, what the hell? I'm not going on to college on a scholarship anyway, which I should have, seeing that I have $100,000 in student loans. I perhaps should have been trying to run to get some free school money, but that's beside the point. And also with smoking as a teen, now I feel like now it's more of an issue because we have been introduced to edibles. And I've seen some news articles that more teens or even preteens as young as 12 years old are starting to smoke weed earlier. Of course, because, with smoking, that comes with you having to actually smoke and sneak around and hide the smoke and hide the smell. So it's a lot harder to smoke a joint or smoke weed. But in the case of edibles, you just eat a cookie, eat a gummy, no smell. Nobody really knows. So teens are indulging in weed at an earlier age. And the misconception is edibles are a safer form of weed consumption. Hold on. Okay, the idea that weed in edible forms is safer than smoking. Okay, anything that you smoke, of course, is more harmful because you're smoking in fumes and it's tobacco and cigars, nicotine, like that. But edibles they also have their drawbacks because you have kids that are 12 that are starting to get high with edibles at a much younger age. So if you're getting high at 16 or 17 or 18 can be crucial to you forming an addiction habit later in life. How do you think, obviously your brain is still forming at 12. How does a 12, a 13, or 14-year-old handle taking in weed at that young of age? So it is this rise of kids actually using cannabis at a much younger age. And a part of that is due, not only due to laws, but due to edibles. It's easier to hide. Said you can't smell it. There's no, it's just easier to consume cannabis. So I think edibles are actually bad for teens because they are causing kids to smoke at a younger age. So, lasting thoughts. Kids should not smoke weed in high school because our brains are not fully formed. We're still learning. We're still finding out about ourselves. We shouldn't introduce something that's messing with our brain function at that age. I think Joe Rogan, who's an advocate for weed, but I do respect Joe for saying he didn't start smoking weed until he was like in his mid-20s. So I think if you let your brain fully form and then you decide to actually use cannabis, you have a lesser chance of falling to an addiction or the drug actually affecting your brain development. So just like things like sex, like alcohol, all these things are easier to handle if we're dealing with them with a fully adult brain that it's through growing. So what do you guys feel about this? Do you feel like it's not a big deal? Teens smoke, that it's their years to hang out, to party, to find themselves, it's not a big issue? Or you yourself have maybe started smoking when you were in your teenagers and you find it hard to quit now that you are in your 20s, in your 30s, or so on. For me personally, I started at 16. I could not quit until I was 35. So it took me damn near 20 years to let the ganja go. So I'm curious to know what you guys feel below. Until next time, guys, please like, subscribe, and share. And remember, we are all in this together. Bye.